Welcome, welcome, welcome to the Monday stream. I hope everyone's having an awesome Monday morning. Hey, Kevin, how's it going? Hold on, folks. Hey, Astro, how's it going? As you can see, this is not the usual setup, but that's okay. Let me make sure we got this. Sorry about that, folks. Let me just take a moment here. Okay, I think we got everything going. We've got a few things to go through. As you can see, this is probably very obvious that this is not my normal setup. I'm actually camping out here in my sister's room. Oh, hold on, folks. Oof. Okay, we're good. Almost forgot to plug my computer in. That would have been very awkward to have a midstream go down. That being said, we do have a announcement to make at some point soon. It's going to be very, very cool. Alright, folks, we've got a few articles to go through, but... Alright, so I guess we should start with Amazon. Hey, Bike Shop Guru, how's it going? Can you send that to me by Whispers? That's pretty relevant. Can you send that to me? Any good news today? Yes. There is good news, actually. How's it going, Dendera? All right, so we'll go and take a look at this in a second. You know what? Since then there I mentioned it, we'll start with the good news. All right. The Starbucks union campaign has won 16 elections and lost just one. So that's pretty good. That is very good news. Hey, Yellow King, how's it going? That is very, very good news. The union has petitioned for elections at 200 stores. Nice. The union representing Starbucks workers continue to grow each week. This is very good. Workers at all three of the coffee's locations in Ithaca, New York, voted almost unanimously to join the workers' union. To join the Union Workers United on Friday. The election results for the trio was 19 to 1, 13 to 1, and 15 to 1. I wonder who that lone vote was. Is that like the manager? Was that like the one lone manager who didn't who voted against it? Hold on, folks. Let me fix something here. There we go. Okay. I bet tons of companies are scared at all the union success going around the country. Good. Good. It's very good news for the workers at Starbucks. Meanwhile, workers at a store in Overland Park, Kansas, voted 6 to 1 in favor of unionizing, although several ballots have been challenged and could still change the outcome. The union says, yeah, who is this one lone vote that keeps... That must be the manager, right? That must be the manager. The election wins on Friday came on the heels of 3 other victories that day before when workers at a group of Starbucks stores in Buffalo and Rochester areas all voted to unionize. Following this week's vote count, the campaign known as Starbucks Workers United has won 16 elections and lost only 1, and now represents hundreds of workers in several states. Nice. Nice. Now that is very good to hear. All told, the campaign has filed for elections at roughly 200 stores around the country, making it likely many more will choose to unionize. Nice. This is some good news. Starbucks has roughly 9,000 corporate-owned stores, and these are the first in the country to have union representation. High-profile union backers, including Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren, congratulated the campaign on its success Friday, calling it an enormous inspiration to all workers across the country. True. Nice. If I had my if I had my soundboard, I would have that clapping that clap track. You love to see it, true. You love to see it. Starbucks has opposed the union campaign and held meetings with workers urging them to vote against the union. Why? Are unions like good or something? That's kind of weird. The company has managed to delay elections by filing appeals with the NLRB, arguing that workers should vote in elections on a regional basis rather than individual stores, but the labor board has rejected Starbucks' arguments. That's good. That's very good to hear. The company has fired several workers who happened to be union activists, including 7 from the store in Memphis, Tennessee. Workers United has filed charges with the labor board, arguing that the firings are retaliatory and meant to purge union work support from the ranks. Starbucks has said it fired the Memphis workers because, yep, and that's the classic quote, they violated company policy by allowing non-employees into the store outside of work hours. Yeah, whatever BS company policy is what they're gonna show. Bloomberg reported on Friday that the labor board has determined that the Memphis firings were illegal and intends to pursue a case against Starbucks unless the company chooses to settle. Yeah, but like, I don't get it. So what happens if Starbucks ends up being guilty of this, right? So they just get a fine and that's it? The labor board's action could result in the workers being reinstated on the job. I don't know if I would want to go back. Right, anything that sticks. The Starbucks campaign began last year in Buffalo, where workers unionized the first store in December. The organizing effort has spread like wildfire since then, with the union announcing new election petitions every week. Nice. That's very good. This is what I was saying, that if it happens to be that one of these stores or warehouses, in the case of Amazon, manages to unionize, then that will provide a encouragement or more incentives for the rest of them to start unionization, which is good. Former longtime CEO Howard Schultz recently returned to the helm of the company as it battles the organized. Imagine, like, this is seen as a battle. In a recent talk with employees, Schultz said that he was not anti-union, yet described the union campaign in dark terms. Yeah, I'm not anti-union, but like, we're family, right? We here at Starbucks, we take care of our employees, right? We're like family, right? Quote, and this is a real quote from him. We can't ignore what's happening in this country as it relates to companies throughout the country being assaulted. What? in many ways by the threat of unionization. No, just people like you feel threatened. The Starbucks union effort coincides with a growing organizing campaign at Amazon. The tech giant recently saw its first U.S. warehouse unionized when workers at the JFK 8 facility in Staten Island voted 2,654 to 2,131 in favor of joining the new Amazon labor union. Workers there overcame an intense anti-union campaign waged by Amazon managers and outside consultants. I believe they spent total about 4 million plus in this effort to stop unionization. Imagine spending $4 million and still losing. Amazon has already signaled it intends to challenge the vote and have the election results thrown out. Yeah, okay, buddy. Good luck. Good luck. Apparently, John Oliver is trending on Twitter for blackmailing congressmen with data? What? What does that even mean? Is he threatening to, like, release actual, like, facts? Or what? What does that mean? Because if that's the case, just release it. Very strange. Would that be related to Trump Jr. tax? I don't know. No idea. Oh, AT&T. Is he going after AT&T again? This past Wednesday, and folks, this is so important to pay attention to some of these Supreme Court cases. This is so important. This past Wednesday, the Supreme Court issued a 5-4 shadow docket order reviving a Trump-era ruling that radically limited the ability of states and tribes to restrict projects like pipelines that will damage the environment. With their decision, the majority upended decades of settled law recognizing states' authority to protect their own waters without bothering to issue a single sentence of reasoning. Just 2 days earlier, Justice Amy Coney Barrett once again declared that the Supreme Court is not political. Wait. Okay. During a speech at the Ronald Reagan Presidential Library Foundation, Americans concerned that a particular ruling was purely results-driven, she said that should read the opinion. A close reading, Barrett asserted. Okay. would help the public decide if the ruling is designed to impose the policy preference of the majority or an honest effort to determine what the Constitution and precedent requires. But those upset by Wednesday's decision, which strayed so far from what known law that even Chief Justice Roberts was driven to dissent, cannot read the opinion because there is none. If that logic-free attack on the Clean Water Act is not purely results-driven attempt to impose the policy preferences of the majority, it's hard to see what it is. Yikes. This is not good. The court's order on Wednesday in Louisiana versus American Rivers is an affront to the Clean Waters Act, federalism, judicial restraint, and common sense. It arises, and this is this is one of the things that we must pay attention when decisions like this are on the board. Thank you for the follow, Lizzie. It's an affront to Clean Waters Act, federalism, judicial restraint, and common sense. It arises out of a dispute between Donald Trump's EPA and a coalition of states and tribes. The Clean Water Act, first passed in 1972, is a quintessential example of cooperative federalism. It compels the federal government to work with states and tribes before approving a project that would diminish water quality. Yeah, I don't know about you, but I don't know about you, but I kind of like the whole drinkable water. I kind of like the idea of being able to drink the water unencumbered or knowing that there's some type of regulations protecting the quality of the water. In a major 1994 ruling, one was accompanied by many pages of reasoning. The Supreme Court affirmed states and tribes' authority to grant, modify, or deny certification of a potentially destructive energy project. No, it's not energy project, like the idea that it... No, these things aren't energy projects. These things are fossil fuel projects, like oil pipelines or coal export facility. I don't know if this is done just out of ignorance, I guess, or not. I don't know. The idea that you can't conflate energy with fossil fuel. This is the fossil fuel industry. It does not have to be the energy industry. Energy can be attained through various methods. For nearly 50 years, states and tribes have done just that, imposing additional requirements on these projects or vetoing them altogether. They may place limitations on discharge into the water and on the activity as a whole to protect their environments from pollution. This power has allowed states and tribes to uphold their own water quality standards, even when the federal government is eager to provide a fossil fuel company's latest dangerous venture. The states often deny certification because the fossil fuel company refused to provide key information about the negative environmental impacts on rivers, streams, and wetlands. Dissatisfied companies can contest the state or tribe's decision in state or federal court, as well as administrative tribunals. I think this is a precursor to the water shortage coming and giving corporations control over the water. This opens the door for things to come. I'm not sure. The thing is, like, one thing is for sure. There is already water shortages. California, at this point, experienced one of the most brutal droughts, period. I think one of the worst droughts in 1,200 years. They've been forced to cut down water time and time again. I love the profile picture. The Elmo profile picture. Predictably, energy companies dislike local authorities' latitude over their projects, as do many red states. In 2020, Trump's EPA responded to these objections by drastically cutting back state and tribes' authority to modify or deny certifications. Right, because they actually don't care about, like, every time they say something, they really mean the opposite, right? That's always kind of like continuously been, time and time again, the case. Like, yeah, we should give more power and leave these options to the state. We don't need an overreaching federal government, telling everybody what to do. Except when we want that to happen, in this case. Windmills cause cancer. Yeah, that's a good meme. The agency's unprecedented rule limited these governments' review of potential pollution as well as their ability to incorporate new conditions into the permit. It also slashed the amount of information companies must turn over, leaving states and tribes in the dark about dangerous environmental impacts of new projects. Yep, just like the corporations like it. As much asymmetric information so that they can continue to destroy and exploit, unencumbered. The rule has caused substantial disarray in a number of states, including Washington, whose aquaculture industry nearly collapsed. Yeah. A coalition of 20 states, 3 tribes, and 6 conservation organizations sued to block the rule, while 8 red states and 3 industry trade groups intervened to defend it. Interesting. In 2021, Joe Biden's EPA announced it would reconsider and revise the rule. A district court set aside the rule in October, finding evidence that it would impose significant environmental harm. Yeah, no kidding. Allowing corporations to go unencumbered, giving as little information as possible, taking away regulatory powers in any way, shape, or form, always results in more significant harm. That decision is pending in the Court of Appeals. After dragging its feet for nearly 5 months, a group of red states and trade groups belatedly asked the SCOTUS to put the district court's decision on hold before the Court of Appeals could even issue a ruling. Nestle has already tried pushing for privatized water. Yep. I mean, water's on the market, folks. You can bet on the shortages of water. Because, of course, instead of actually attempting to solve any problems, we give it to the we give it to the Wall Street, right? You can now bet on the futures of water. Now, the Supreme Court has agreed and revived the Trump rule, although we don't know why. Wait, what? Wait, what do you mean we don't know why? You've got a conservative supermajority on the Supreme Court. What do you mean you don't know why? Because the 5-justice majority did not deign to explain its action. Okay, cool. So we just... Okay, get effed, everybody. Nice. The silence left Justice Elena Kagan to issue a bewildered dissent, joined by Chief Justice along with the Justices Breyer and Sotomayor. Kagan pointed out that by law, the Supreme Court can issue this kind of stay in extraordinary circumstances when there is an exceptional need for immediate relief, including evidence of irreparable harm. Here, the Trump's defenders insisted that the states were obstructing vital energy projects, vital fossil fuel projects, but Kagan wrote they have not identified a single project that the state has obstructed. What? So you can't even provide, like, so then what would necessitate an emergency an emergency ruling that could potentially result in ironically irreparable harm? I mean, if you allow these companies to destroy the water sources, wouldn't that in and of itself be irreparable harm? All right, hold on, folks. Put simply, they failed to explain how returning to the pre-Trump regime, which existed for 50 years, would hurt them at all. Because it doesn't. It's all about how much they can exploit. And don't get it twisted. Whenever you see energy, the energy industry, when they actually mean the fossil fuel industry, that is done on purpose. That is very crafted, very carefully crafted words to attempt to get people to interlink the two, right? Because, you need fossil fuels. It's energy. How else are you going to get energy? We're the energy industry. You need us. Hey, Duke, how's it going? For some reason, I'm trying to get this up here. I'm trying to get chat. There we go. Really appreciate you stopping by. So piggybacking off that original article, Amazon fights to overturn union's historic win, because of course. Amazon is seeking to overturn a historic union victory at the New York City warehouse, arguing in a legal filing that that union organizers and the NLRB acted in ways that tainted the results. That's really rich. That's really rich coming from the company who, and this is true, attempted to taint the results in the other unionization effort. That's a little rich coming from the company who spent millions of dollars attempting to, quote, taint the results, who were found guilty, actually, in the Bessemer election. Attempting to overturn that unionization effort. So that's that's a good meme. Someone made an interesting point on a podcast I listened to now and again about how the energy in the situation in the U.S. is now a little more precarious. But how is the question? Because initially the Democratic message was that they wanted to move away from fossil fuels. Yeah, and then had to sharply U-turn when the Ukraine thing happened, and now left, and they're now left having to ask the fossil fuels to ramp up again. No, they don't have to though. That's like a big mistake. Like this is an abject failure of an attempt to use this as a way to say, and this is why we need to move away from fossil fuels, right? What an absolute failure. What an absolute missed opportunity, right? Because like if the argument is, oh well, energy independence and all this other problems because of the war in Ukraine, it's obviously important to stress the importance of energy independence and fossil fuels and whatnot. Then wouldn't the proper action be like, okay, we can't be dependent on these things. How do we get out of them? How do we get off them? What can we do in as many ways as possible and as quickly as possible to make us truly energy independent, to create the new and future industries of green, of renewable energy? If fossil fuels are the problem because of the shortages and the dependency, over dependency, too dependent, I should say, on fossil fuels, then the response should be, okay, well, how do we get off them? What can we do? Can we invest in more solar and offshore wind projects? Can we attempt to figure out how to decouple ourselves and stop fracking, stop new permits from this point on? I mean, like, these are the real questions that they should be asking themselves instead of turning around and saying, oh, we got to ramp up production. No. It should be the response should have been the exact opposite. It's like, this is a perfect opportunity to illustrate why we need to get off fossil fuels. But of course, well, the problem is that the infrastructure for renewable isn't necessarily there just now. It's less so much about what the US uses, but what other key nations do, because Canada, for example, imported quite a lot of fossil fuels from Russia and also imports. So if they take less from Russia, in effect, they need more from the US, which means demand goes up, price goes up, and starts a bit of out of hand. It's a bit of a weird power play between the companies and the government. So, okay, nationalize them. Okay, and if this is a problem, nationalize them. It seems to be an issue with timelines. If they're planning to planning on winding down one thing with a certain end date in mind, and then the world events, world events dictates that policy needs to be reversed. You can bet the energy companies are going to not just do their best to meet the demand, but securing extensions to agreed wind down policies in exchange. Yeah, sure. It's given the energy companies more chips to play with than they had before, which isn't good for the renewable transition. Okay. Nationalize them. Easy peasy. Clearly an indication that the if that is true, if we're having an issue where companies are literally attempting to strong arm people because of obvious market failures and dangling things over our heads. It's kind of like what the healthcare companies do, right? Like the private insurance companies. Nationalize them. I'm not saying that you can just like snap your fingers and then boom, everybody has renewable energy. I'm saying that this conversation should be about then, should then be about, okay, well, clearly the fossil fuels are the problem. How do we get off of these things, right? There's so many negatives, and this crisis in Ukraine has just illustrated the fact that we probably should be figuring out other alternatives as quickly as possible. That should be the conversation. It shouldn't be like we need to ramp up production. It should be how do we get off of this thing? I think the default position is that energy companies have always strong-armed the government in some way. Crises just tend to make them more noticeable. Cool, nationalize them. I'm told that we can't have a 100% energy supply by renewable sources. What do you think about nuclear tech? I am skeptical. I think the main problem with nuclear is the timeline and the price. And I'm not 100% convinced. I need to see the data on that, because like it's very weird to say like, oh, you can't have 100%. To make statements in absolute like that sounds kind of weird. But do I prefer nuclear over, like, I don't know, coal? Yeah. The problem with nuclear is the price and the timeline it takes to get that on board. Maybe my main objections, and of course, who is going to upkeep that, right? After seeing disastrous like private companies just make a whole mess of things, I don't know if I want them handling nuclear. I do think that you have a point though, James Napper. I do think that you have a point. That these companies, do have always kind of behind the scenes or outright have always been in the position to strong arm governments because they control something that we need, which is energy. It's the same reason why healthcare in the private hands is such a disaster, right? Because it's not something that's really negotiable, right? It's not like you can opt out of healthcare. If we started building nuclear reactors 20 years ago, they'd be really handy right about now. But given that we didn't, and any we start now won't be making electricity for a few decades, I'm not sure it's the answer. Right, that's exactly what I said. Exactly, Zeoduke. Like, not only are we having concerns about who is, in charge of it, but how long and how expensive. Right, there's no absolute rule for energy because every nation and region is different. Some places have good winds, some places don't live near ocean, some places get less sun. Some nations live in geothermal hotspots. Nuclear is a good option for nations that don't have any other good alternatives. So like northern European states who are landlocked. Yeah, anything that like absolutely cannot have any ability to get any renewables, then like at that point, yeah, but this should have started decades ago, unfortunately. Unfortunately, and by the time those folks get on board, I mean, it's not gonna matter, is it? That's not okay. That's not really gonna that's not gonna really make a difference at that point. I mean, not that we shouldn't move. Um, not that we shouldn't not that we shouldn't move towards that direction. That's kind of a weird take, my friend. Anyways, strange. Strange. Oh no, they're already hitting the slurs. Except trolls have no power here. They're already trying to hit the slurs, but trolls have no power here. I think you gave that troll exactly what they wanted. I hope I did. I hope they can move on in life. No, no, no. It's auto blocked, Thandera. It's auto modded. It's auto modded. Surprisingly, profit motive is cringe. Yeah, especially when it comes to important things like healthcare. People can be enticed with a profit as long as they do with it, as long as they do so within good laws that mean they can only make money doing a good job for all involved, perhaps. Uh, unfortunately, that's not how that works. When your when your sole driver is profit, things can get a little dicey and ethically questionable when it comes down to things like healthcare and stuff like that. Yeah, yeah. You don't become, Amazon on Goodwill, you know? You don't become Walmart on Goodwill. Can we have a conversation about the difference between being able to live and profit? Like how many people and how maybe people don't have the right to profit? It's like, it just depends on how you like present that argument because like Yeah, people should have the ability. People should have the ability to live and to do as they please. People should not have the ability to exploit. Is writing good laws more attainable than replacing money? Oh yeah. Yeah, in this current iteration, yes. Like if you tell me that tomorrow there's going to be a law implementing more regulations on, I don't know, whatever industry so that they don't release harmful chemicals in the water, then yeah, I'm gonna take that over nothing, right? If tomorrow you tell me that there's gonna be regulations on petrochemical companies, um, that they can't, dump PFAS chemicals in the water, or can't use PFAS chemicals to produce X, Y, or Z, then I'm going to take that over nothing, right? I mean, yeah. All right, focus chat. The e-commerce giant wants to redo the election. Amazon listed 25 objections in the filing on Friday and accusing the Amazon labor union of intimidating workers. Oh man, does this sound a little bit projecty? A little bit projecty? Of intimidating workers to vote for the union, a claim an attorney representing the group has called patently absurd. The employees have spoken. Eric Milner, the attorney, said in a statement after Amazon's initial planned objections were made public in another legal filing. Amazon is choosing to ignore that and instead engage in stalling tactics to avoid the inevitable, coming to the bargaining table and negotiating for a contract on behalf of the workers. Grom Serino coming in hot with 11 viewers. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. How's it going, everybody? Welcome, welcome. Bread Crochets, how's it going? Okay. Folks, if you haven't already, please go take a second, just a second, to go show some love to twitch.tv/gromsterino. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. If you guys haven't seen who we are A Difficult Truth. We do news and politics Monday through Thursday, 9 a.m. Eastern Time. And we also do Saturday Catterdays, usually, at noon Eastern Time. So make sure you hit that follow button, yeah? Warehouse workers in Staten Island cast 2,654, or about 55% in favor, enough support to pull off a victory last week. One objection, Amazon said organizers intentionally creating hostile confrontations in front of eligible voters by interrupting the mandatory meetings it held to persuade its employees. Wait, so they're mad that workers are interrupting mandatory meetings that are meant to reject unionization. That's what they're mad about? That's a good meme. The other day I saw a super old clip, super old clip of Bernie scolding Walmart in Congress, and in 2022 he still does it. Oh yeah. Yeah, one thing you can count on is that, like, at least when it comes to Bernie Sanders, that dude has been the same since, like, the beginning. In one objection, oh yeah, okay, so they're big mad because workers interrupted mandatory meetings to persuade employees to reject unionization. Gotcha. Okay. That's a good meme. In a filing last week, the company disclosed it spent about 4.2 million last year on labor consultants. In another objection, Amazon targeted organizers' distribution of cannabis. Oh no. Oh no. First of all, source. And second of all, and? You can be mad all you want, but if it's legal... You can be mad all you want, but if it's legal... distribution of cannabis to workers, saying that the labor board cannot condone such a practice as a legitimate method of obtaining support for labor organization. First of all, you've got to prove that. And second of all, you got to follow up with, and they use this to get support for unionization. So first of all, you got to prove that it happened, and then you got to prove that it happened because of that, to show in support of unionization. New York legalized recreational use of marijuana over the last year for those over 21. Milner, the attorney representing the union, said Amazon is grasping at straws. Distributing cannabis is no different than distributing free t-shirts, and it certainly did not interfere with the election. The company also accused organizers of improperly polling workers. I mean, like, it seems to me like, it seems to me like all the things that they're accusing the union of doing is the exact thing that they did in the Bessemer case, right? With the exception of the distribution of cannabis, because they can't over there. You can tell how much they're going to lose if they get unionized by all the money they're spending to stop it. Oh, sometimes, like, corporations will spend whatever it takes as long as they, avoid unionization, because I think that they feel maybe even if they overspend, that it's worth it. The company also accused organizers of improperly polling workers. Okay. The retailer has signaled its plan to challenge the election results because of a lawsuit the NLRB filed in March, in which the board sought to force Amazon to reinstate a fired employee who is involved in a union drive. Right, because you fire employees who are potential union organizers. That's what they do. The company pointed to the lawsuit of one of its objections filed on Friday, saying that the regional NLRB office that brought the suit failed to protect the integrity and neutrality of its process, and had created an impression of support for the union by seeking reinstatement of the former employee Gerald Bryson. Well, if you fired this employee illegally, then that's on you. That is on you, buddy. Based on the evidence we've seen so far as it sets out in our objections, we believe that the actions of the NLRB and the ALU improperly suppressed and influenced the vote, and we think the election should be conducted again so that a fair and broadly representative vote can be had. Oh man, the memes write themselves. I mean, I wonder how they feel about. I wonder, like, who is in charge of this? Okay, this was sent by Kelly Nantel, who's the spokesperson. The Amazon, if that's the official Amazon spokesperson, how do they feel about the evidence that came out that they purposefully and in multiple occasions attempted to not only suppress but to influence the vote as well? Up to and including going over to local governments and putting pressure on them to do things like, for example, mess with the mess with the lights. I mean, how do you square that circle? Bryson was fired in the early days of the pandemic after leading a protest calling for the company to do more to protect workers against COVID-19. Ah, oh, sorry. My bad. We fire workers because they got too mad that we weren't doing anything to protect them, and then they were rude. So that violates company policies. So we gotta fire them. While off the job, wait. So she wasn't even okay. While off the job during a protest, Bryson got into a dispute with another worker and was later fired for violating Amazon's vulgar language policies. Really? Yeah, okay. The NLRB did not immediately respond to the request for comment. Its spokesperson, Kayla Blado, has said that the independent agency has been authorized by Congress to enforce the National Labor Relations Act. All NLRB enforcement actions against Amazon have been consistent with that congressional mandate. I mean, yeah, they're a regulatory body. That's their job. In other objections, Amazon targeted how the labor agency conducted the election. It said the agency failed to control the media presence around the voting area and didn't have enough staff and equipment, which the company says created long lines and discouraged many employees from voting in the subsequent polling sessions. Okay. You know, this is a very interesting, like, tacit. Well, I don't know if it's like one to one, but interesting that they pull that card. That, if you don't have enough staffing or equipment or ability to give people the option, and you create a scenario where there's, like, I don't know, long lines to vote, it may discourage people from voting. Interesting little point there. Both Amazon and the Retail Wholesale Department Store Union, the RWDSU, a union that spearheaded a separate union drive in Bessemer, have filed objections to that election. The final outcome in Alabama is still up in the air, with 416 outstanding challenge ballots hanging in the balance. Initial results showed the union down by 118 votes, with the majority of Amazon warehouse workers rejecting a bid to unionize. The RWDSU, which filed more than 20 objections, said in its filing that its objections are grounds to set the election aside. A hearing to review the challenged ballots is expected to begin in the coming weeks. So that's kind of just to go full circle from the first story. Hopefully, we'll see more unionization efforts, especially after the Staten Island victory, and especially after, in the Starbucks world, after more workers are beginning to file for unionization across the country. It's very good. All right, folks. We gotta talk about this one. This is not good. Not good to say the least. Not good to say the least. This is the end game, folks. This is truly the end game for these people. Folks, before we get into it, please, if you guys have a second, please make sure you hit that follow button. And if you have a second, please head on over to our YouTube channel. Head on over to our Discord to keep up with the channel. And once again, if you haven't already, make sure you go follow twitch.tv/comserino. Thank you so much for that massive raid. Oh, that's a cool bed. Oh, it's not mine. I appreciate that, but that one's not mine. Alright, that concludes the 5-second chill session. Thank you guys for all the support. I appreciate it. Is it true they force proper abortion clinics to close down? They have, slowly but surely. That's the end game. But this one is well, that's been the case for quite a while now. Each little regulation, each little rule designed to make sure that access is cut down, you know, death by 1,000 cuts kind of deal. But this right here is the end game, folks. Are you still in Florida? For now. All right. This is the end game, folks. Have a good one. You have a good one. Yeah, now I got all these like free these hemp advertising because of that one mention. Isn't that creepy? Isn't that creepy? We were just talking about how Amazon workers were being allegedly offered free cannabis, and now I'm getting like hemp and CBD advertisings. Jeez, that's so weird. Not creepy at all. Not creepy at all. My friend IRL Hitch is in Miami. Cycling to North Carolina? Wait, like just literally cycling? That would take what? Like actually just cycling across state? I don't know. Or just taking bike paths here. Florida Keys to North Carolina in 3 weeks with a tent and a bike. Oh, literally. Wow. Jeez. Godspeed. Sheesh. Alright, this one is this one's serious, folks. Alright, focus chat. More like focus for me. Alright. Prosecutors to drop come back. There we go. Prosecutors to drop charges against Texas woman over her abortion. A local prosecutor in Texas will dismiss criminal charges against a 26-year-old woman who was arrested for a self-induced abortion in a case that has drawn national scrutiny and led abortion rights activists to demonstrate on her behalf. Following a grand jury indictment of her, I can't believe that the grand jury would even consider a case like this. Lizelle Herrera was arrested on Thursday by Starr County Sheriff's Office, according to ValleyCentral.com, which cited a spokesperson that she was intentionally and knowingly caused the death of an individual by Holy yikes. Yep, this is what they want. Starr County District Attorney said on Sunday that his office would file a motion to dismiss the charges. Of course, like, just on its surface, this should have never been entertained. But the fact that this even was put forth, should already raise all the red flags, all the alarm bells. Because they kind of give it away here, right? That's the idea. They kind of give away the plot here. Is she getting that 10K fine? I don't think so. Because she didn't go anywhere. I don't know. I don't know how that would work, Astro. I don't think so. Every one of those states that are doing all this crap about abortion is breaking HIPAA laws, probably. But I don't think they're. If they are, I don't think they really care, to be honest. In reviewing applicable Texas law, it is clear, right? Like this is ridiculous that Mrs. Herrera cannot and should not be prosecuted for the allegations against her. Yeah, and like again, how does past even the grand jury to even indict her? It's just beyond me. How the grand jury was even able to entertain this was beyond me. but just a small window of what they really want to push for. Neither the district attorney nor the sheriff's office department, nor the sheriff's department responded to queries about when she would be released. Well, that should be like immediate, right? You would think. Stark County is on the Mexican border in Rio Grande Valley region in the southern tip of Texas. Ramirez said sheriff's deputies were right to arrest her, as to ignore the incident would have been a dereliction of their duty. But he also said that in... What? No. Okay. But he also said district attorneys have prosecutorial discretion, and his oath is to, quote, do justice. Yeah, okay. Following the oath, the only correct outcome to this matter is to immediately dismiss the indictment against Mrs. Herrera, which should have never been brought into the first place. Like, I can't believe that this is even, like, entertained by a grand jury. I'm still stuck on that. I'm still stuck on the fact that this was even, like, entertained at all. Yes, of course, Astro. They should also force every man to get clipped, true. Since we're all about, yeah, let's just do it across the board, right? Fair is fair. The case also reignited controversy over Texas strict abortion law that was largely upheld by the U.S. Supreme Court. Wait, whoa, no. It was not taken into consideration. They didn't take it up. That was the problem. They didn't take up the challenge. Yeah, they were, quote, just following orders. Yeah, that's not good. That's not good. Known as SB 8, the law bans abortions after 6 weeks of pregnancy before many women know they're pregnant, and does not exempt women who are impregnated by rape, because of course that's, classic Republican actions here. Can't have exceptions to rape or incest, because that would be kind of... Isn't it always weird that that's always such a thing? That's always such a hard thing to fight for, even in these very harsh laws. There isn't even exception, which is very telling, by the way. It's a bit of a self-report every time they do that. Just saying, it's kind of weird. Kinda weird. The Stark County prosecutor did not comment on what specific legal standard he applied. Yeah, I mean, this prosecutor... Wait a minute. This brings up a good point. This prosecutor... should be... Is there like a review board when they do things? When prosecutors do things that are, like, massively overstepping, is there, like, a review board that can look and be like, yo, what's the deal here? There's no checks on this? How's it going, Purple Dragon Crew? Sorry I didn't say hi. Instead pointed to, the Stark County prosecutor did not comment on what specific legal standard he applied. Yeah, like, you need to be able to justify this, right? If you're going to indict people... or you're gonna accuse them of a crime, and then there should be, aren't there, like, standards that you're supposed to follow? And if you don't follow those standards, then what is the procedure? And he applied and instead pointed to how the indictment has taken a toll on Herrera and her family. The issues surrounding this matter are clearly contentious. No, contentious to you, maybe. However, based on Texas laws, and the facts presented, it is not a criminal matter. Then, okay. A small group of protesters had gathered outside the sheriff's office on Saturday, led by La Frontera Fund, an abortion assistance group. She miscarried at a hospital and allegedly confided to hospital staff that she attempted to induce an abortion, and she was reported to the authorities by hospital administration or staff. Wow. Holy yikes. You realize the implications of this, right? Um, that's literally Astro just alluded to it right there. Astro just alluded to it right there. That's the domino effect of this, right? Because why would you go seek, even if it's within your right, even if it's within still as harsh as it is, even if it's still within those laws or those parameters, how confident do you feel going to get medical help if you are at risk of being reported to the authorities by hospital administration or staff? How likely are you going to, even if it's like still within those harsh parameters, but nonetheless legal? How likely are you? You're not going to because of this story. You're not going to because of people like this prosecutor, right? And people like this the administration or whoever, um, reported her to the authorities. Why would you go seek healthcare if you're at any risk of being reported to the authorities? And of course, that goes back to what Astro is saying right there, going back to backstreet abortions, which, yep, will result in more dead women. That's the real that's the whole. I didn't know this part. I didn't know this part. But she was actually ratted out by the own uh the own hospital staff. That's messed up. If all this anti-abortion crap keeps going, it will cause more deaths than if they just left it alone. Yeah, 100. Hospital staff probably under obligation. Yeah, because if they knowingly, if somebody found out, it could be on them. The liability could be on them. In which case, that other law, where a private citizen could then sue them for 10K, would kick in. I think at that point, I think Zeoduke is onto something. But nonetheless, it's a chilling effect because why would you even go to the hospital if you're going to be in danger of being reported to the authorities? What if it has nothing to do with abortion and you suffer a miscarriage, but somebody witnesses what they thought, maybe, perhaps, and now what? At the end of the day, this is what they would want right here. This is a small glimpse of what they would do should they ever get a hold of much more power than they have now. Should conservatives get more power, this is a glimpse as to what they would want. The ability to prosecute people. for the idea of choice. You can't stop abortions, you can only take away safe ones. Yeah, having it done at the hospital, right? I mean, I've spoken on here about how I've had to concede and call things wrong on abortion thing. I didn't think that the Supreme Court would even tolerate the idea. Yeah, I mean, um, you would think, but here we are. I mean, I've sounded that alarm bell since the moment, you know, since the moment, I Like Beer guy was nominated. I didn't think the Supreme Court even tolerated the idea of undermining existing legislation, but that isn't certain anymore. The problem I see is that you're just getting very deep camps emerging, and it's now becoming one of the defining partisan lines of American politics, and that's particularly worrying because it's not just who earns what or who gets taxes. Yeah, but like, uh, there is no. In many cases, it's in many cases life and death. Right? That's the thing. Like, this is like not a partisan issue, right? In terms of like, you're legitimately putting in danger people, and you're limiting their ability to get healthcare, and it's all just one-sided. These bills just take away professional help and treatment, more laws attacking healthcare, but the head and legislators will have the deaths of those and their laws cause on their own hands and consciences. They don't care. They don't see it that way. You can't stop their use of recreational drugs. It has taken them 100 years or so. They tried prohibition, but they're starting to regulate rather than try and wipe out these things. Yeah. Oh yeah, 100% then there. But it's like, this is the problem right here. And I think that, like, there's only one, I think, acceptable answer, and it's the ability to choose in this situation. That's it. If you feel so morally objectful to abortion, don't have one. Easy peasy. If you feel so morally strong about abortion, don't have one. That's it. The only correct answer, and I know this is absolute, but the reality is, like, that is the answer, right? Pro-choice, because you don't have to, or you can. I don't know. It's up to you. That's the point. Bodily autonomy cannot be negotiated. The majority of Americans support access, even religious, but it's revealing because of policy preference. The best example being men who reported to support abortion. Yeah, I mean, like, because because the conservatives, the Republican Party, are authoritarian. They were never. They don't care about any of that. They don't care if it's like popular or not popular, as long as it gets them the specific, like, radical evangelical types, the fundamentalists, like, that give them just enough to stay in power. And yeah, this is just a power move. That's it. And this tend to be a bit more flexible because they often hold being a woman is a more important thing than being partisan, and quite rightly so. True. I mean, like, that's it doesn't have to be a partisan issue. The question of bodily autonomy isn't a partisan issue. It's not up for debate in my opinion. It's like no one should tell you what to do with your body. I mean, it's just that simple. Bodily autonomy is not up for debate. Especially when it's just about you, right? But yeah, this is a glimpse as to what the end game looks like should they ever get more power. This is just a glimpse. That's right. Hey, I like pie. How's it going? It's all a game of which I can give evangelicals without losing the regular Republicans. Yep. All right, folks. We've got um we've got some ground to cover today. We have to morning morning. Hope you're doing well. Hope you're doing well. We're hanging in here. Wonder why you're not supposed to cite a quote or distribute the doc. I don't know. This is probably just a this is probably just written at the beginning before its release because it still goes under review by the governments themselves before the thing gets sent out. So this is like the technical summary. As soon as we allow governments to have any control over body autonomy, we sacrifice all autonomy because who isn't to say what goes? You need medicine? Oh, yep. It's sorry, that goes against what Jesus Christ says. As theocracies, we don't need the medicine. If you just pray hard enough, it'll go away. True. Yeah, this is directly from the IPCC, Zeoduke. You can check it out yourself. We are on page 70. We're just so close, folks. We're going to try to do as much as we can before I have to head out. And see how much ground we can cover. All right. Continued investment in general health systems and systems enhancing health protection is an effective adaptation strategy in the short to medium term. High confidence. Although some mortality and morbidity from climate change is already unavoidable, target adaptation and mitigation actions can avoid. Oop, hold on. This thing is not. My mouse is just not working that well. Okay. Can reduce risks and vulnerabilities. High confidence. The burden of disease could be reduced and resilience increased through health systems, generating awareness of climate change impacts on health, medium confidence, strengthening access to water and sanitation, high confidence, integrating vector control management approaches, very high confidence, expansion of existing early warning monitoring systems, high confidence, increasing vaccine development and coverage, high, medium confidence, and improving heat resistance of the built environment, medium confidence, and building financial safety nets, medium confidence. Many adaptation measures that benefit health and well-being are found in other sectors, example food, livelihood, social protection, water, sanitation, infrastructure, high confidence. Such cross-sectoral solutions can improve air quality through renewable energy sources, very high confidence, active transport, example walking, cycling, high confidence, and sustainable food systems that can lead to healthier diets. Yeah, I mean, yeah, so this is kind of alluding to the whole city planning thing. Yeah. Heat action plans have strong potential to prevent mortality from extreme heat events and elevated temperature, high confidence. Nature-based solutions reduce a variety of risks to both physical and mental health and well-being. High confidence, for example, integrated agroecological food systems offer opportunities to improve dietary diversity while building climate-related local resilience to food insecurity. High confidence, especially when combined with gender equity and social justice, social policy-based adaptation, including education and adaptation of health systems, offers considerable future scope. The greatest gaps between policy and action are failures to manage adaptation of social infrastructure, community facilities, services, and networks, failure to address complex interconnected risks, for example, the food, energy, water, health nexus, or the interrelationship of air quality and climate risk. Despite acknowledgement of the importance of adaptation as a key component, action has been slow since AR5. Building climate resilient health systems will require multi-sectoral and multi-system collaborative efforts at all governance scales. Yeah, so this is all hands on deck kind of deal. Very high confidence. Globally, health systems are poorly resourced in general, and their capacity to respond to climate change is weak, with mental health support being particularly inadequate. True. Very high confidence. The health sectors in some countries have focused on implementing incremental changes to policies and measures to respond to impacts. Very high confidence. As the likelihood of dangerous risk to human health continues to increase, there's a greater need for transformational change to health and other systems. Very high confidence. Yeah, this makes sense. I mean, of course, without access to food, without access to water, and especially with the fact that climate change can increase the probabilities of future pandemics, yeah, healthcare or health is a very big part of this. This highlights an urgent and immediate need to address the wider interactions between environmental change, socioeconomic development, and human health and well-being. Yeah. Financial constraints are the most referenced barrier to health adaptation, and therefore scaling up financial investments remains a key international priority. Very high confidence. Financial support for health adaptation is currently at less than 0.5% of overall dispersed multilateral climate finance projects. High confidence, this level of investment is insufficient to protect human health and health systems from most climate-sensitive health risks. Jesus. 0.5%. Of very high confidence, adaptation financing often does not reach places where climate sensitivity of health sector is greatest. High confidence. Reducing future risks of involuntary migration and displacement due to climate change is possible by improving outcomes of existing migration patterns, addressing vulnerabilities that pose barriers to in situ adaptation and livelihood strategies, and meeting existing migration agreements and development objectives. Medium confidence. Properly supported and where levels of agency and assets are high, migration as an adaptation to climate change can reduce exposure and socioeconomic vulnerability. Medium confidence. However, migration becomes a risk when climate hazards cause an individual, household, or community to move involuntarily with low agency. High confidence, inability to migrate, i.e., involuntary immobility in the face of climate hazards, is also a potential risk to exposed populations. Medium confidence, broad-based institutional and cross-sectoral efforts to build adaptive capacity, including meeting the Sustainable Development Goals, reduce risk of future risks of climate-related involuntary displacement and immobility. Medium confidence, with policies such as a global compact on safe, orderly, and regular migration. Medium confidence that are aimed at ensuring safe and orderly movements of people within and between states are potentially components of climate-resilient development pathways that can improve migration as an adaptation. Improved feasibility of planned relocation and resettlement is a high priority for managing climate risk. High confidence. Residents of small island states do not view relocation as an appropriate or desirable means of adaptation to the impacts of climate change. High confidence. Previous disaster and development related relocation has been expensive contingents that pose multiple challenges for governments and amplified existing and generated new vulnerabilities for the people involved. High confidence. Locations where permanent and government assistance relocated becomes unavoidable. Active involvement of local populations in planning and decision making may lead to more successful outcomes. Medium confidence. Uh-oh. There we go. Meeting sustainable goals supports adaptive capacity that in turn supports individuals, households, and community manage climate risk and support peace. True. By addressing vulnerability, improving livelihoods, and strengthening institutions, meeting the SDGs reduce risk of armed conflicts and violence. Meeting confidence, formal institutional arrangements for natural resource management and environmental peacebuilding, conflict-sensitive adaptation, and climate-sensitive peacebuilding, and gender-sensitive approaches offer potential new avenues to build peace in conflict-prone zones vulnerable to climate change. Medium confidence. However, there's currently insufficient evidence on their success, and further monitoring and evaluation is required. I mean, it kind of makes sense, though, right? I mean, if you think about it, having limited resources, having climate change reduce your capabilities of growing food, reduce your capabilities of getting water, all that can cause a lot of avenues for conflict, right? It just kind of follows, or at least it makes sense anyways. Adaptation actions consistent with climate justice address near and long-term risks through decision-making process that attends to the moral and legal principles of fairness, equity, and responsibility, including to historically marginalized communities that distribute benefits, burdens, and risks equitably. Concept of justice, consent, and rights-based decision-making, together with societal measures of well-being, are increasingly used to legitimate adaptation actions and evaluate the impacts of individuals and ecosystems, diverse communities, and across generations. Medium confidence. Applying these principles as part of monitoring and evaluating the outcomes of adaptation, particularly during system transitions, provide a basis for ensuring that distribution of benefits or costs are identified. Near-term adaptation responses influence future inequalities, poverty, livelihood, security, and well-being. High confidence. True. Adaptation and mitigation approaches that exacerbate inequitable access to resources and fail to address injustice, increase suffering, including water and food insecurity, malnutrition rates for vulnerable groups that rely directly or indirectly on natural resources for their livelihoods. Yeah. That's everybody, folks. Under an inequality Under an inequality scenario, SSP4, the number of people living in extreme poverty would increase by more than 100 million. Yikes. There's medium evidence and low agreement that about the adaptation impacts of derivatives-based insurance products. Insurance solutions are difficult for low-income groups to access. True. Medium confidence. Formal insurance policies come with risks when implemented in a standalone manner, including risks of maladaptation. Climate-induced changes are not experienced equally across gender, income class, ethnicity, age, or physical ability. Therefore, participation of historically excluded groups such as women, youth, and marginalized community, example, indigenous peoples, ethnic minorities, and the disabled, low-income households, contributes to more equitable and socially just adaptation action. Adaptation actions that do not automatically have positive outcomes for gender equality. Understanding the positive and negative links of adaptation actions with gender equality goals is important to ensure that adaptive actions do not exacerbate current existing gender-based and other social inequalities. Climate literacy varies across diverse communities, compounding vulnerability. Empowering marginalized communities in co-production of policy at all scales of decision-making advances equitable adaptation efforts and reduces risks of maladaptation. Recognizing indigenous rights and local knowledge in design and implementation of climate change response contributes to equitable adaptation outcomes. High confidence indigenous knowledge and local knowledge play an important role in finding solutions that often create critical linkage between cultures and policy frameworks, economic systems, and natural resource management. Intergenerational approach for future climate planning and policy will become increasingly important in relation to management, use, and valuation of socio-ecological systems. High confidence. Many regions benefit from the significantly diverse of local knowledge and systems of production informed by long-standing experience with natural variability, providing a rich foundation for adaptation actions effective at local scales. High confidence. Proactive partnership with governments and the community, private sector, and national agencies to minimize negative social, environmental, economic, and impacts of economy-wide transitions are emerging, but their implementation is uneven. The greatest gains, medium confidence, the greatest gains are achieved by prioritizing investments and reduced climate risk for low-income, marginalized residents, particularly in informal settlements and rural communities. High confidence. Some cities and local governments invest directly in adaptation actions that work in partnership. A range of agencies, legislative frameworks will assist business and insurance sector investment in key infrastructure to drive adaptation at scale for equitable outcomes. Medium confidence. Intersectional, gender-responsive, and inclusive decision-making can accelerate transformative adaptation over the long term to reduce vulnerability. High confidence. No, go back. Go forward. Great, now I lost my spot. Come on. Do you have a link to this report? Yeah. I usually post it before I start. Here, I'll post it again. Intersectional, gender-responsive, and inclusive decision-making can accelerate transformative adaptation over the long term to reduce vulnerabilities. High-confidence approaches to adaptation that addresses the needs of the most disadvantaged to co-production of knowledge are more sensitive to diverse community priorities and can yield beneficial climate coadaptation benefits. There are gender differences in climate literacy in many regions, exacerbating vulnerability in agriculture contexts and access to resource and opportunities for climate resilient crops. High confidence. Local leadership amongst women and youth can advance equity within and between generations. Medium confidence. Since AR5 social movements, including movements led by youth and indigenous and ethnic communities, have heightened public awareness about the need for urgent and inclusive action to achieve adaptation that can also enhance well-being and advance climate justice. Climate justice initiatives that explicitly address multidimensional inequalities as part of climate change adaptation strategy can reduce inequities in access to resources, assets, and services, as well as participation in decision-making and leadership is essential to achieving gender and climate justice. Oh my god. Okay. Various tools, measures, and processes available that can enable, accelerate, and sustain adaptation implementation, high confidence, in particular when anticipating climate change impacts, empower inclusive decision making and action when they are supported by adaptation finance and leadership across all sectors and groups in society, high confidence. The actions and decisions taken today determine future impacts and play a critical role in expanding the solution space for future adaptation. True. That is 100% true. Everything that we do now or don't do is going to be reflected in the severity of what's going to end up happening. Every decision that we do or don't do will determine future impacts. Institutional frameworks, policies, and plans that set out adaptation goals, define responsibilities and commitment devices, coordinate among sectors, and build adaptive capacity will facilitate sustained adaptation actions. Very high confidence. In other words, we should probably do something now. Yeah, maybe. Adaptation is considered in the climate policies of at least 170 countries. Opportunities exist to integrate adaptation into institutionalized decision cycles, examples, budget reform, statutory monitoring, and statutory monitoring and evaluation, election cycles, and during the windows of opportunity, recovery after disastrous events, designing new or replacing existing critical infrastructure, or developing COVID recovery projects, high confidence. Appraisal of adaptation options for policy and implementation that considers the risks of adverse effects can help prevent maladaptive adaptation and take advantage of possible benefits, medium confidence. Instruments such as behavioral nudges, redirecting subsidies, taxes, regulation of marketing, insurance schemes have proven useful to strengthen societal response beyond governmental actors, medium confidence. Access to and mobilizing adequate financial resources for vulnerable regions is an important catalyzing factor for timely climate resilient development and climate risk management, high confidence. Total track climate finance has increased from 364 billion per year in 2010 to 11 to 579 billion in 2017-18, with only 4 to 8% of this allocated to adaptation and more than 90% of adaptation finance coming from public sources. Developed country climate finance leverage for developing countries for mitigation and adaptation has shown an upward trend, but has fallen short of the US 100 billion per year 2020 target of the Copenhagen Commitment. Lamau. Yeah, okay. And less than 20% has been for adaptation. Estimated global and regional costs for adaptation are vary widely due to differences in assumptions, methods, and data. The majority of more recent estimates are higher than the figures presented in AR5, median and ranges estimates for costs for developing country adaptation from recent studies are 127. Wait, what? Oh, median. Okay. Median. Uh, and 295 billion per year for 2030 and 2050 respectively. I mean, that's a what? I want to almost say a third, maybe a little bit more, but I mean, for all intents and purposes, we're just spitballing. About a third of the military budget, right? Just saying. Increasing public and finance flows by billions of dollars per year, increasing direct access to multilateral funds, strengthening project pipeline development, and shifting finance from readiness activities to project implementation can enhance implementation of climate change adaptation and is fundamental to achieving climate justice for highly vulnerable countries, including small island states and African countries. Decision support tools and decision analytic methods are available and are being applied for climate adaptation and climate risk management in different contexts. High confidence. Integrated adaptation frameworks and decision support tools that anticipate multidimensional risks and accommodate community values are more effective than those with narrow focus on single risks. Medium confidence. Approaches that integrate the adaptation needs of multiple sectors, such as disaster management, account for different risk perceptions, and integrate multiple knowledge systems are better suited to addressing key risks. Medium confidence. Reliable climate services, monitoring, and early warning systems are the most commonly used strategies for managing key risks, complementing long-term investment in risk reduction. High confidence. With these strategies, whilst these strategies are applicable to society as a whole, they need to be tailored to specific contexts in order to be adopted effectively. Okay, I think that was a typo. Effective management of climate risks is dependent on systematically integrating adaptation across interacting climate risks and across sectors. Very high confidence. Integrated pathways for managing climate risk will be most suitable when low regrets anticipatory options are established jointly across sectors in a timely manner. They are feasible and effective in their local context. Path dependencies are avoided in order to not limit future options for climate resilient development, and when maladaptation across sectors are avoided. High confidence. Integration of risks across sectors can be assisted by mainstreaming climate considerations across institutions and decision-making processes. High confidence. Many forms of climate adaptation are likely to be more effective, efficient, and equitable when organized collectively and with multiple objectives. Using different assessment, modeling, monitoring, and evaluation approaches can facilitate understanding of the societal implications of trade-offs. Forward-looking adaptive planning and iterative risk management can avoid path dependencies, maladaptation, and ensure timely action. Timely action, meaning like things that needed to have happened a decade ago? No. More than that? Decades ago? Maybe 20 years ago? That ship has sailed. Approaches that stage adaptation into manageable steps over time and use pathway analysis to determine low regret actions for the near-term and long-term options are a useful starting point for adaptation. Medium confidence. Decision frameworks that consider multiple objectives, scenarios, timeframes, and strategies can avoid privileging some views over the others and help multiple actors to identify resilient and equitable solutions to complex and deeply uncertain challenges, as well as explicitly dealing with trade-offs. Considering socioeconomic developments and climatic changes beyond 2100 is particularly relevant for long-lived investment decisions such as new harbors, airports, urban expansions, and flood defenses to avoid lock-ins. Yikes. Medium confidence. I don't think our current governments are interested in any of this, actually. if you want my honest opinion. Monitoring climate change, socioeconomic developments, and progress on implementation is critical for learning about adaptation success and maladaptation, and to assess if and what further actions are needed for informing iterative risk management. Enhancing climate change literacy on impacts and possible solutions is necessary to inform widespread, sustained implementation of adaptation by state and non-state actors. High confidence. Ways to enhance climate literacy and foster behavioral changes include access to education, information programs, using the performance and visual arts, storytelling, training workshops, participatory, three-dimensional modeling, climate services, and community-based monitoring. The use of indigenous knowledge and local knowledge represents and codifies actual experience and autonomous adaptations, and facilitates awareness, clarifies risk perception, and enhances the understanding and adoption of solutions. Narratives can effectively communicate climate information and link this to societal goals and the actions needed to achieve them. Political commitment. Okay, that's a good meme. And political commitment and follow-through acts across all levels of government are important to accelerate the implementation of adequate and timely adaptation actions. High confidence. Implementing actions often requires large upfront investments of human and financial resources and political capital by public, private, and societal actors, whilst the benefits of the actions may only become visible in the mid to long term. Needing confidence. Examples that can accelerate adaptation action include accountability and transparency mechanisms, monitoring and evaluation of adaptation progress, social movements, climate litigation, and building the economic case for adaptation and increased adaptation finance. Medium evidence, high agreement. Well, therein lies the problem, right? It is true that political commitment and follow-through, more importantly, is key. But we've shown to none of that here anyways. Unfortunately. Alright folks, we've made it to all the way to page 75. That's pretty good, I would say. That's pretty good. Folks, unfortunately, I do gotta get going. I gotta get myself set up for work. But I do appreciate you guys hanging out here. Thank you so much. Thank you for the massive raid. Thank you for all the follows. Thank you for the support. I appreciate it. Don't forget, on your way out, make sure that you hit that follow button on your way out. Make sure you join the Discords, do all that awesome stuff. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. It really does help us out. I appreciate that. We are here Monday through Thursday, 9 a.m. Eastern Time. And on Saturdays, usually, we are here for Saturday. Have a great day. You have a great day. Thank you so much. So make sure you do that. And if you hit the follow button on your way out, you do get 5 free emotes, alright? So that's cool. Thank you guys so much. I appreciate it. Let me go ahead and get this raid going. I appreciate it. You guys are the best. We can't do this without you guys, folks. Alright? Thank you so much. As always, please stay safe. Please take care of each other. I love you all, and I hope to see you guys in the next one. See ya! Alright, folks. We are heading out in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Go show Ida and send some love, alright? See ya!